Welcome to Fine Tuning with Drew Taylor, your one-stop shop when it comes to animation news and commentary. I'm Drew's co-host, entertainment writer Jim Hill, and he and I are recording this on Monday, January 13th, 2020, which is the day that this year's Oscar nominations got announced. So they got announced at 8:30 East Coast time, so shows like Good Morning America could actually air the announcements in real time, but that's 5:30 West Coast time, and
5:18 is when they started. Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. And Drew, you have to explain, because again, this is the world you live in.
So yeah, I got up at 5, and then I looked at something online that said that they weren't going to be announced until 5:18. Mm-hmm. So I went back to sleep for 15 minutes, woke up. You know that it's early when Nova doesn't want to get up yet.
Well, I was about to say, I mean, poor Nova. It's like, what are we doing up now? I don't want to go out. I don't want to eat.
It was a new sensation for me. But so she stayed asleep. But it's interesting because you guys get Good Morning America, but on the West Coast, it's still like the local yokels news hour. So it was like George Pinocchios, who I know you remember from ABC7, who's like been there 100 years.
Oh my God, yeah. Okay.
So he's doing the announcements.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because you don't have that extra like layer of professionalism that you do, because it's actually on one of the morning shows. It's just on whatever local news station is on at the time. So, but I enjoyed it. I had to, keep quiet and, muffle my booze because Katie was still asleep. But, it's an interesting process. I like getting up and doing it. It's kind of fun to take part in it.
Okay.
So yeah, I was up.
So let's talk about the announcements, because face it, what I found interesting, at least if we're talking features, if we compare what the Annies announced for their feature awards back in December, there's very little difference between these two lists.
Yeah.
Well, we got How to Train Your Dragon, Hidden World. We've got Missing Link. We've got Toy Story 4. Also Klaus.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference between the way the Academy Awards went and the Annies went is I Lost My Body got an Oscar nod, but not Frozen 2.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so they did get kind of a face-saving. They got a nomination for Best Song, Into the Unknown.
Yes.
So what's your interpretation of this? I mean, I know you were on Twitter earlier today. Again, that's half the fun of working with you is your opinions. And it's just sort of like, for example, what you were saying about Ford and Ferrari proving that there's far too many old white men who work in Hollywood.
Right. I was surprised by that one, but I mean, it makes perfect sense after you factor in with that tweet of mine. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this is like the dad movie of the century.
No, that's it exactly. But you were also out there saying how much you enjoyed Toy Story 4. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Frozen 2 just this past weekend, $1.37 billion.
Right.
And kind of ironic that, they get the nod for original song, because this coming weekend is when the sing-along edition of Frozen 2 bows in theaters around the country.
Every parents are going to be scrambling to make different plans for the weekend so they don't have to take their children to go see the singing version of Frozen 2.
Oh, God. So,
I'm not really sure what happened. I mean, maybe it's just Frozen overload. I think that a even more interesting omission too is Weathering with You from Japan, which was submitted not only for the animated feature category, but also was Japan's entry for the best international film competition too. So that got snubbed twice. And this is from the people that made Your Name, which is like the biggest Japanese animated hit ever. That's another thing.
Interesting in both cases. Isn't it Fathom that's handling the release in the States?
Yeah, I think Fathom did a special event, and then it's being handled by G Kids, which has a great reputation for getting international features in this category. So I don't really know what happened with either of those. I'm a little surprised by How to Train Your Dragon, to be honest. I think that was maybe the weakest installment in the franchise and has a lot of highs and lows. So, yeah.
You're not going to get an argument from me on that. But face it, we had, basically How to Train Your Dragon 3 going up against Toy Story 4 and Frozen 2, and something was going to fall out.
Yeah.
But that said, the choices they made, well, first of all, you and I have talked about Klaus, and I would love it. I would love it if Sergio and his team got the award just because it's a new take on hand-drawn.
Yes.
But at the same time, we've got 2 Netflix films, right? We've got this and I Lost My Body, or...
Did you watch I Lost My Body?
It is on the list, and face it, you and I both are drowning in a sea of media. In fact, did you actually finish Infinity Train?
No,
book 2?
I did not. No, I'm working on this big feature right now, and I got. You know what happens when you get into the research hole.
Oh, no, you get in that research K-hole, and it's just sort of like this story leads to that story, which leads to this story.
Yeah,
and somehow
it's like, how do you put this in a timeline? But I haven't finished that. I haven't finished Steven Universe Future. There's just so much, Jim. There's too much.
No, it is. But again, it's great for us because we get to do the show each week.
Yes.
But let's be honest here. Missing Link took home the Golden Globe for animated feature Sunday last. This past week, Toy Story 4 took home the Critics' Choice Award for Best Animated Feature. And you know how it works out there. When you win an Academy Award, it's not really for what's happening now. I mean, for example, I'm sure you've heard all the Brad Pitt talk about, face it, that this isn't really an award for his work in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. As good as that performance is, by the way, I really enjoyed that performance, but this is more about the fact that he got robbed for his work in Moneyball.
Right.
And so if we pivot now to Laika and Missing Link, don't get me wrong, fine film, got some ambitious stuff in it, but I think in a lot of ways, this nomination is kind of a make good for the fact that the Academy, didn't recognize films like Paranorman or Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah. I don't think Box Trolls was even nominated for.
Yeah.
I think that could be. I mean, I agree. I don't think Missing Link is great by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Chris Butler is a great filmmaker, and I, want him to keep making movies, and I want Laika to keep making movies, and it feels like the gas is in the tank is damn near empty at Laika. Looking at it on a kind of spreadsheet, it's like how are these still going on? You know what I mean?
I agree. That's one of those reasons why I would really like this Oscar to happen, because you and I both know that it'll put gas in the tank. Now, that said, though, think about what happened with Rhythm and Hues, with Life of Pi. I mean,
that's true.
Did all this amazing effects work on this Best Picture, and they go out of business. An award doesn't necessarily, translate into a lifeline, but I would really like that to happen because I really love what they do at Laika.
Yeah, it's just like who's the audience? Where's the audience? Is there an audience?
But
I don't know.
And I especially would like Laika to keep working now while the whole subscription streaming service world sorts itself out. Because, the whole notion that, if Laika could start producing films for that market where you literally have a piece of straight pipe for animation fans, you don't have to be in the multiplex, you're not in that whole ball score thing of, well, here's the opening weekend and this was number 1 and this was number 2 and this was number 3. Think about it. The Netflix quite confidently talked about Klaus being a hit film because it got 30 million downloads.
Right.
So it's like that's a hit.
Right.
So
and they've got the Henry Selick movie supposedly still coming in 2021. So
okay, here's hoping. Here's hoping. So all right. Well, anyway, to pivot from film to television, I know, again, I promise you folks, Drew and I will eventually catch up with Infinity Train Book 2. I got through the first episode.
It's good, right?
It is. Again, they're still doing it as a 5-night event, and they're still, it's episodic storytelling. It has the exact same strengths and weaknesses of the first Infinity Train.
Right.
That you had some episodes that were great, some episodes that were kind of placeholders, and this one started strong, so I will be circling back to it tonight. But something I know you did get to watch this past weekend was the premiere of The Owl House.
Yes. Wow. What a wonderful half hour of television that was.
Did you love it? I have to admit, any show, you're 2 minutes in and Luz, the lead character, because her principal and her mom want her to be more normal. They're sending her off to summer camp for 3 months, where the mothers talk about it. It'll be great. You'll learn to balance a checkbook and appreciate public radio. And it's
right. It's like a conformity camp or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to just plunge into the world of the Edna, the owl lady, or King the demon, and again, it's so nice to have Alex Hirsch back.
Yeah.
I have to admit, while I was watching this episode, all I could think of is like, I mean, this is great, but I really would like some more Gravity Falls.
Jim, you and me both. But guess what? Alex is at Netflix and he's not looking back. So, I think we just got to take that, move forward with our lives, try to rebuild relationships, all the things that we neglected while we were obsessing about Gravity Falls,
Okay.
And maybe put some of that energy into loving Owl House just as much,
Okay. I'll get with the program. On the other hand, I was trying to watch the Thundercats Roar, the pilot.
Yeah, that's like a 2-part pilot. Yeah.
Yeah, which is currently available for viewing on the Cartoon Network app. All I could get to play was like the minute-long sort of intro where they gave you which by the way was really delightfully animated and well written. And in fact, I got very much an OK KO Let's Be Heroes vibe.
Oh yeah, the intro of it. Yeah. I watched. It was on demand on Spectrum where I live.
Okay.
So maybe check that when we get off the Skype call, but. Yeah, I really thought it was very delightful. I mean, I'm not a Thundercats purist by any stretch of the imagination. I really didn't watch it much as a kid, although that is sort of my generation. And I really thought the approach they went with, this kind of funny, self-aware stuff, was really great. I don't think it's as good as Owl House, obviously, but it's great that there's so much great animation on right now. It seems like an embarrassment of riches these days.
Well, no, but the thing is, the waves keep rolling in. I mean, did you see just this past weekend at the Television Critics Association Winter Press Tour, CBS All Access was talking about how, I guess just this week, on January 17th, the brand new editions of Mr. Magoo, Georgia the Jungle, and Lassie, and Lassie is an animated series.
Oh, interesting.
Going to start on that over in that streamer. Now, what's kind of interesting about this is that all three of these series are being done by DreamWorks Television Animation. They're properties that DreamWorks acquired when they bought Classic Media.
I remember that.
Yeah, you got to remember, folks, that Classic Media was this warehouse of properties. I mean, it was like, well, what did they get with that? They got Rudolph, they got Frosty.
They got Peabody and Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
And God, I hate to say this, but in our politically correct times, I'm going to be intrigued to see what they do with Mr. Magoo.
Right. Yeah.
It's just one of these things where it's like, okay, that's going to be kind of hard to write for today's world, but I still want to see that.
Yeah, we go to Tarantino's theater here. Speaking of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, called the New Beverly, and he's always programming all this great stuff before the movie. And we were there not too long ago, and there was a Mr. Magoo short, and it was like, yeah, how would this play in 2020? And now we're going to find out, Jim, thanks to DreamWorks Animation.
So.
Yeah.
But the more intriguing thing to me is that the Lassie animated series, evidently CBS All Access, of the three, they were the most excited about this because they're hoping that this will be their Spirit Riding Free, that DreamWorks animated series that debuted on Netflix back in May of 2017, which very loosely based on the DreamWorks animated feature. In fact, oddly enough, we would talk about Oscar nominated, that was nominated for Best Animated Feature back in 2002. But we're talking about Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. But they're 8 seasons into the show now at Netflix, 52 episodes. And it's hugely popular with little girls. So as a result of which, there's this really robust consumer products program. And we talked previously about the theatrical spinoff of this Netflix series that's coming from DreamWorks in May of 2021. And so they're hoping in a weird sort of way that, well, little girls love horses, little girls love big collie dogs, that maybe this will be our Spirit running free. So,
I wonder why none of these DreamWorks things are being saved for Peacock.
Oh, boy. I was just talking with somebody about Peacock. They are so much in the formative period that, in fact, that's the thing we were talking about, how Disney is so much more on its A game in regard to, for example, capitalizing on The Mandalorian and plans to bring those characters into the park and that sort of thing. And whereas Comcast and NBC Universal really isn't in that headspace yet. And as a result of which that Peacock is kind of suffering because of that, because they were, but the hope is that when this thing debuts in April, is that what I heard?
I don't know. I mean, they're doing this thing. Have you heard of this thing called Peacock Live? It's kind of like their D23.
Yeah, the Universal event in the parks. I'm halfway tempted to come out for that just to have them walk it through.
Yeah, it just seems bizarre. But have you seen the art from this new DreamWorks animation show that's on Netflix this week called Kipo and the Age of Wonder Beasts?
I just saw that name, and I saw a piece of concept art for that. Do you have anything more in the series? I mean, that looked great.
Yeah, I mean, it's created by Radford Sechrist, who is a DreamWorks storyboard artist, and it really looks cool. It's about a 13-year-old girl who grows up in this sort of post-apocalyptic landscape where all the animals have become intelligent, and the animation looks absolutely stunning, and it's premiering tomorrow, which is weird that it's on a Tuesday, but yeah, it looks absolutely amazing. So we're gonna have to watch it for next week, Jim. What I'm trying to tell you is you've got more homework to do.
There we go. Oh, God. All right. And we were just talking about, television properties that become theatrical films. Tell you what, folks, when we get back, we're going to talk about Teacher's Pet, the Disney television series that debuted on ABC that found its way into theaters back in 2004.
This episode is brought to you by Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus has movies. So many movies. The movies you've seen 1,000 times and could watch 1,000 more. Iconic movies your friends can't believe you haven't seen. New movies, classic movies, new takes on classic movies. So whether you're into Top Gun or The Naked Gun, Mean Girls or Mission Impossible, Smurfs or Sonic the Hedgehog, there's a mountain of movies to discover on Paramount Plus. Start streaming today.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Before we get started here, sideways plug for another podcast we do here at Jim Hill Media. I Want That. We got our first brand new episode since August out the door earlier this week, and I bring it up because we did a good chunk of this past show about Maleficent and Sleeping Beauty. And Drew, I am not a big fan of that animated feature from February 59. I mean, it's a beautiful film. I love the whole idea of an animated tapestry, but the story itself is a snooze, but that said, it's still the favorite film of cardiologist Thuthi David. When her boyfriend, Lee Loescher, offered to take Thuthi to the Coolidge Screening Room in Boston to see a screening of Disney's Sleeping Beauty. She agreed to go. Now, what Ms. David didn't realize is that Mr. Loescher had been planning to propose to her at this screening of Sleeping Beauty. But not only that, to make the experience that much more special, Lee had commissioned illustrator Kayla Coombs and a small team of animators to rework the final portion of Disney's Sleeping Beauty. So you know the film, Drew. You've seen it and dozed off like me, countless times while watching it. But there's that scene toward the very end of the film where Prince Philip enters the tower. He's defeated Maleficent the dragon. He's cut his way through the thorns, and now he enters the room where the sleeping Princess Aurora is lying in state. But while this version of the footage that Kayla Combs and her team worked on is screening, Aurora suddenly changes from a blonde to a brunette. And not only that, but begins resembling Suthi. But as Princess Aurora is awakened by love's true kiss, Prince Philip transforms into Lee. But not only that, the now princely version of Mr. Loescher flashes a box with an engagement ring at the animated version of Miss David. And then the on-screen animated version of Mr. Loescher turns and tosses the box out into the audience. And the real-life Mr. Lee seems to catch the box out of midair and then gets on one knee and he asks Suthi to marry him. The cool thing is, the on-screen versions of David and Suthi are looking unnervous and like, is she going to say yes? And initially, Miss Suthi, who, by the way, is a cardiologist, which when you get to hear his proposal, there's lots of talk of aortas and ventricles. And she turns and begins to apologize to the audience, but she only then realizes that everybody in the audience is her friends and family, that David had set this all up. And so she says yes, and the film continues with They Live Happily Ever After with, animated version of the two of them on screen. And the interesting thing is that Lee also prepared for when she said no. They evidently had footage ready, repurposed footage of the dwarves weeping from Snow White. But I bring this up because you can go on YouTube right now and watch this thing.
I hate this so much, Jim. I just have to say that right off the bat. I think this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I'm not trying to squash young love, Jim. You know that. I'm a true romantic.
I get that.
But the fact that this guy like reanimated this, I find it so painful.
Well, you bring up a very interesting question because when I was watching this, I really was of two minds. It's like, okay, A, when do the Disney lawyers descend on these people like wolves?
Yeah.
Or, again, remember, this is the Walt Disney Company, and if there's profit to be had, when does this become a special add-on for Disney fairy tale weddings?
Right.
Because face it, we always hear these stories about these crazy, over-the-top Disney fairy tale weddings where they book out the park and they have their ceremony in front of Cinderella Castle with a glass coach and all that. And if you're willing to throw that sort of money at a party, okay, throw us another 30, 40, 50,000 and we'll create a movie of you and insert you into a classic Disney animated film. Honestly, Drew, that was the reason I wanted to share this story with you, because it's like, how long do you expect before this becomes, when you're sitting down with your wedding planner at Disney and it's like, would you like to be in a cartoon?
I think this could have kept the Florida studio open, quite frankly. Just doing this stupid stuff.
From your lips to God's ears, it always kills me to be backstage at the studio there and see this. Again, this was the only building for animators designed by animators. They brought them in for a design charrette. For example, the conference rooms in this building were deliberately set up so that they would be storyboard friendly. The notion of you have to bring these giant and again, remember, this was a hand-drawn studio. So bringing these giant presentation boards and, doors big enough to haul these things down the hall and all that. I mean, a place for the maximum efficiency to make animation. And now it's literally filled with all of these marketing and consumer product executives who their job is like, when the animated film is finished, it's like, okay, how can we find additional ways to sell this? How can we turn this into yet another revenue stream? So,
sigh. It was a special place. It was a really special place, especially as a young person who wanted to do that or wanted to be a part of that. It was such a magical experience going through there, especially before the internet, when you would see things for the first time in that space, which was
seriously
really cool.
You would look through the window and often you could see a character for the very first time because somebody was drawing it for a film that wouldn't be out for another year or two. So.
Yeah.
And speaking when films came out, January 16th, 2004, Teacher's Pet was released at theaters 15 years ago this week. Did you ever get to see this when it ran on ABC? This is the one
I never did. That was sort of like a little bit past my time. And God only knows that I would regress now back to watching cartoons for the large majority of my free time. But, I was a little old for it then. But.
I don't know. I get that. A lot of the reason that this one was on my radar is that I'm a huge Nathan Lane fan, and so Nathan actually voiced the sort of the lead character of the piece. He was the voice of Leonard Helperman's dog Spot, who also, the conceit of the show is that the dog went to school with the boy and masqueraded as the coolest kid in school, Scott, Lead Ready II. Back in the day, I mean, this was a big hit for Disney. It took 2 daytime Emmys for the Outstanding Special Class Animated Program. That was in 2002, 2003. And Nathan Lane himself took home a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Performer in an Animated Series. But I bring this up because, again, that's when it aired on ABC, and then Disney put a movie version of this TV show out in theaters, in January 2004. And there's actually a lot of misinformation out there about these sorts of movies. Again, and they're a weird subset of Disney animated films. They are, theatrical release movies that are based on Disney television shows. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, that must be part of the Disney home premiere line. And but here's the thing. The very first one of these, the DuckTales, the movie Legend of the Lost Lamp, it came out in theaters in August of 1990. And the first Disney home premiere, Return to Jafar, didn't even show up on store shelves till May of 1994. I mean, hell, the original Aladdin didn't arrive in theaters to November of 1992. So if we're being completely honest here, Drew, Rip Taylor's Genie preceded Robin Williams. But the DuckTales, the movie, it's kind of this interesting story in that it actually started out. Remember how DuckTales would start off each new season with like 4 interlocking episodes?
Yeah, a lot of the Disney afternoon shows did stuff like that.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is evidently Legend of the Lost Lamp was originally pitched as the season opener for season 4. And somewhere along the way, kind of got put on a different track. And they were looking for something for the animation studio that Disney had just set up in Paris to do. And they wound up doing, Legend of the Lost Lamp. When it came out and it made so much dough that they immediately went, okay, we should probably do another one of these, which then brings us to the Goofy movie.
A Disney movie tune is what they called it.
There we go. All right, that's right. There was a noticeable difference in quality between, at least we were talking DuckTales, Legend of the Lost Lamp. On the other hand, with the Goofy movie, by then, the studio in Paris had really stepped up its game. In fact, this one wound up being directed by Kevin Lima, who, of course, would go on to work on Tarzan and the like. And for me, it's just been fascinating. I don't know when the last time you were in a Disney store, Drew, but they're doing a lot of Goofy movie merch now. I mean, this film seems to have really resonated with kids who are now adults. And so there's all sorts of Powerline T-shirts, or, in fact, this is amazing Powerline T-shirt out there that literally has his tour schedule on the back. But again, that came out of the Goofy movie, which premiered on the Disney Channel back in April of 1992. And interesting thing about Goof Troop, I actually got to talk with Mike Peraza, who created the show, and he talked about, the whole first iteration of the show literally was Goof Troop. It was about Goofy being, a scoutmaster to a group of kids. And in the end, in classic Eisner fashion, it's like, I love the name, I hate the show, come up with something else. And then if we jump ahead to March of 1990, we've got Doug's first movie.
I've never seen this.
Okay, well, that's, to be honest, that's two of us. We have to drill down into this story at some point, Drew, because something happened here, all right? Because this show initially debuts on Nickelodeon in August of 1990, runs for 4 years on that cable network, and then somehow in 1996, Disney cuts a deal with Jim Jenkins. He's the guy who created Doug for Nickelodeon. And now 3 additional seasons of Doug run on the Disney Channel and ABC. In fact, they're used to help launch ABC's One Saturday Morning programming block. And the way they differentiated the Nickelodeon Doug from the Disney Doug is that evidently the name of the Disney animated series was Brand New Spanking Doug, which, again, if we're going to do Peacock jokes, the Brand New Spanking Doug, there's jokes that we can't do, Drew. And then I guess the movie, which came out in March of 99, acted as a series finale. Though I guess given what's going on with Rugrats, I think the animated series is still proceeding, but the feature now is on hold.
I don't know what's going on. Yeah, the live action movie, they took off the schedule because that was a Paramount live animation theatrical release. That's not happening anymore. But
okay, all right. And while we're talking, I'm going to be fascinated to see when that finally bubbles up. But while we're talking about One Saturday Morning, another show that debuted as part of that block was Recess. I have to admit, I enjoyed the show, but I had no idea that it was as big a success, I guess, as it was for Disney. Because did you know this thing ran for 6 seasons? I mean,
no, I had no idea.
127 episodes. They did a theatrical release film in February of 2001 called Recess School's Out, and evidently that was so successful. There were 3 direct-to-video sequels done, Miracle on 3rd Street, All Growed Up, and Taking the 5th Grade. And in fact, I guess the very last time the characters showed up in a Disney project, and this is something I got to chase down, but there's a 2006 episode of Lilo and Stitch, the animated series, where evidently the kids from 3rd Street School somehow end up in Hawaii. And then this next one, and I know this is a little bit of a cheat, folks, the Lizzie McGuire movie, but face it, the Lizzie McGuire had some animation in it.
Yeah.
So this arrives in theaters May of 2003, and the series itself debuts on the Disney Channel in January 2001, runs for 2 seasons, 65 episodes. Final episode airs on February 2004. And did you ever hear the stories about the huge plans that Disney had for Hilary Duff and Lizzie McGuire after the Disney Channel show?
No.
Okay. I bring this up because of what just happened this past week. They're doing the Lizzie McGuire reboot, and Terry Minsky, the woman who actually created the original Lizzie McGuire show, who was back to help them with the reboot and was the showrunner. They filmed 2 episodes, Drew. They prominently featured the footage in that Disney Plus trailer that was released back in December. She walked off the show. She's like, I can't do this. And so they're kind of scrambling for a new showrunner, and now there's all this discussion at Disney, like, is this actually going to go forward for our subscription streaming services?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Back in 2003, okay, so again, the Lizzie McGuire movie comes out, makes a nice chunk of change, and Disney immediately begins to talk about how they want to do a new Lizzie McGuire movie every 2 years going forward. In fact, they had a script going where basically it was Lizzie McGuire goes to Rome. There were also plans to transition the Lizzie McGuire character over to ABC, where they do a brand new series of shows where she went to high school. And evidently it all fell apart because Hilary Duff's mom, who also acted as her manager, just got so greedy and so aggressive. And again, Disney's making money off of the show and has big plans for, the future of this character. And it's like, but this woman was so difficult to deal with that, at one point Disney just turned to her and said, this isn't worth it. We're not going to do this. And we're shutting this down. And literally Lizzie McGuire as a franchise died that day. And so that's what was intriguing about the Lizzie McGuire reboot being proposed for Disney Plus, because it was like, everybody was like, do you remember what happened back in, 25 years ago? Or 50 years ago? It's like, oh, no, things will be better this time. Things will be fine. Everybody, everybody's gotten over it. And here, 2 episodes in, and they pull the plug. So.
Yes, I have a friend who's a publicist for Disney Plus, and I'm sure that was a very long day for him. Yeah.
Boy. Well, I don't know. And the thing is, Terry Minsky continued to work for Disney. She was involved with Jessie. She did that spin-off of the show, Bunked. So the fact that she walked away from this thing, that kind of speaks volumes. And again, of course, this brings us up to January 2004. We would talk about Teacher's Pet. And again, this is actually the shortest lived series of the ones that got turned into feature releases. Started September of 2000, and there were only 39 episodes produced, Drew. Interesting thing, though, we have to chase down the people who helped create the show. Sherry and Bill Steinkellner. And the reason we have to do that is they wrote the script for the unproduced Toy Story 3.
Oh, wow.
For Circle 7. I know we've talked about this on previous shows about how Buzz gets recalled and sent back to Japan. If you hammer on Toy Story 3 and Circle 7, folks, there is all of this concept art that's out there. But yeah, they wrote the script. We have to sit down with them at some time and talk with them, because they'd probably have some amazing Circle 7 stories. And then after this, really, the weird thing is that Disney continues to do theatrical releases that are based on Disney Channel series, but it's not animated stuff anymore, Drew. It's things like High School Musical 3 or, Hannah Montana the movie. In the end, they step away from those, and here we are today. Though, again, what's kind of interesting now between Disney Theatrical, which basically seems to be, at least for the movies that are being sent out to the multiplexes, is all about blockbusters, whereas Disney Plus, again, seems to be back to making the sorts of movies that Disney would make in the 1990s and 2000s, where things like Togo, which I have to watch again. So.
Well, I was looking at, the year before Eisner joined the company, #1 movie, Disney movie of 1983 was Never Cry Wolf, the weird biographical thing with that Carol Ballard did.
It's the guy who did
it's the guy
the
from
Black Stallion.
Yes, Carol Ballard.
Yeah, and
Charles Martin Smith from
that's right,
from Untouchables.
That's right, from American Graffiti.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I remember that was the very first time I remember seeing him, Patrick Dennehy in a movie. Do you remember ever seeing this film? Did you ever get to see?
I think I saw it. Yeah, I remember it vaguely, but you're right. I did get it. I also got it confused with like The Journey of Natty Gann.
There we go.
And things like that.
Because again, I'm sorry, I got my Wolf movies screwed up.
There were so many Wolf movies, and there was also there wasn't a Call of the Wild, but there was another Jack London adaptation in there somewhere too.
Oh God, you're right.
So, but yeah, Ethan Hawke, right? White Fang. That's what it was.
We should definitely go revisit Never Cry Wolf, because that was going to be the new Disney movie. I mean, it was during a period where the studio was trying to sort of reinvent itself. So this was in production about the same time as Something Wicked This Way comes. And the reason I bring up Patrick Dennehy is this wonderful moment where he's flying Charlie Martin Smith's naturalist character up to the tundra. And at one point, the little Piper Cub plane they're flying in, the engine cuts out, and they are, they're just gliding over this barren landscape. And Brian Dennehy to fix the engine, actually opens the door of the plane and basically gets out and starts hammering on the engine with like, I want to say like a sledgehammer. But that's what gets the engine to start up again. But he's talking to Charlie Martin Smith about this. Want to make life worth living. And he leans out of the plane and is beating on the engine with the hammer and then comes back into the cockpit, adventure. And it's just sort of like, wow. I mean,
that's how I feel about this podcast, Jim.
Okay. Well, and then speaking of our further adventures, just this past week, you were back at Walt Disney Animation Studios and again, we were just talking about Disney Plus, for a presentation for the Disney Short Circuits program.
Yes, and I got audio. I saw all 14 installments of this thing, and it's really different. It's really interesting. I don't know if you've been watching all of the Spark shorts, the Pixar stuff, but it's a very different vibe. Most are around 90 seconds, which is really interesting, and they run the gamut in terms of stylization. But I think we're going to talk about that next week once people can see it as well. Yeah.
Okay. And one final thing, though, to bring us all the way back to where the show started, in addition to announcing who got Oscar nominations for Best Animated Features, we should mention that two shorts that you and I have talked about several times in this program about how much we enjoyed them. Hair Love, that's Matthew Cherry, and Kid Bull. Out of the Pixar Spark Shorts program, both picked up nominations. So
what you're saying is that we made this happen.
No, you're saying that.
Okay.
You have delusions of grandeur, Drew. I have delusions of adequacy. It's just sort of like, if I can get up in the morning and not trip over a cat, I consider it a success. So, but we'll get to that on our next episode of Fine Tuning. But till then, Drew, what's going on with your Light the Fuse podcast?
Well, we had big casting news last week. Nicholas Hoult is joining the cast from...
just to interrupt here, was I reading that correctly? He's supposedly going to be playing a character with ties back to the original television series?
Well, I think somebody was saying that Shea Wiggum might be playing a character from the original series. I think that Nicholas Hoult is going to be bad, is my guess. Although, there could be another Jim Phelps situation where he's a character from the original series that turns out to be bad.
There we go.
Is always a possibility. But yeah, I mean, we know so little about these movies, but we will be keeping an eye on them.
Okay. Well,
so every Friday, Light the Fuse. So we've got the second part of our interview with one of the producers of Mission 3 and 4 who's working on Top Gun 2 right now, which is great. And then we actually just recorded an episode where we talk about some more episodes of the old show for next week. So that's always fun to go back and watch those old episodes.
No, they are. Have you managed to make it to the Nimoy year? Leonard
yes,
Nimoy
we did.
years?
We did one episode from season 4 called Submarine. I don't know if you remember this. You would love it, Jim, because it's so clearly shot on the Paramount backlot that they don't even try to hide it. It's a really clever episode where they kind of like make this guy think that he's on a sinking submarine, and it's really fun. So we get to talk about that. And then the first episode we talk about has a guest appearance by George Takei. So we kind of cover the Star Trek spectrum on that one.
Very cool. No, I'll have to chase those down. Over at Jim Hill Media, we got a couple other podcasts to listen to as well. We got Disney-ish with Len Testo. We got Universal Joys with Dustin Fuse. We got Marvel Us Disney, which I do with Aaron Adams, the gentleman who edits a lot of the podcasts here. And as I mentioned, we finally got a brand new episode of I Want That with Michelle Valladolid. And then we have the podcast I do with Drew's good, close personal friend, Danzy.
Make sure he remembers to record that one, Jim. Just
he told me about that, and I
listen. We've both had to do it at one point or another.
Yeah, I guess so. It's just I could love technology. But speaking of technology, folks, if you could do Drew and I a favor, if you could head over to iTunes and rate and recommend not only Fine Tuning, but Light the Fuse, that would be incredibly helpful. That gets extra ears and eyeballs in our direction. And if you really, really, really like what you've heard here today, head over to Bandcamp and subscribe. Because again, face it, those DVD sets of, Mission Impossible don't buy themselves.
No.
So. But, well, anyway, all right. So I guess that's going to do it for this week. And again, I promise, folks, when you come back, Drew and I will have done our homework. We'll have watched all of Infinity Train, and we'll be ready to talk about the Short Circuits program at Walt Disney Animation Studios. But until then, thanks for listening.